We're going to be taking a look at gold today. We're going to be doing a very in-depth analysis, as in-depth as I can do in the time that I have on gold. Now, the time is currently 7:42 a.m. and we have NFP because today is the 5th of August, right? And it's a Friday, right? So we have NFP in literally less than 1 hour, right? So I'm going to be producing an analysis on gold here to kind of get an idea as to what is happening, right? So first things first, I can already see that gold is moving up as the first thing, but I'm not going to use that by itself. Obviously, I'm going to try to figure out, because nobody really knows. This is me actually actively trying to figure out what is likely to happen. So for that, I'm going to trust the direction rather than a random entry. And to get a direction, you need to go on the higher time frames, and higher time frames typically start from the 1 hour up, right? You don't need to go as high as the weekly or the monthly unless it is absolutely necessary, because the daily is still ranging. But you will quickly realize that the daily is very, very sufficient as a higher time frame, right? So going on the daily, we can actually tell that gold has been bullish since 2015, right? And it has been on a very aggressive bull run ever since. Now, that's good information by itself, but what I'm actually really interested in is this here. So I'm going to circle this, right? I'm going to circle this here. I'm interested in this. This is a bull run on gold, meaning at this area here on gold, at this area here on gold, you can actually see that this has been not only bull momentum but bearish rejection. Why is it rejecting the bears? I don't know. Nobody knows. It's rejecting the bears in this particular area that 1, 2, 3 taps. It has tapped this area 3 times, right? So that's interesting enough. I'm also looking at gold in this bear trend here, right? So they are somewhat contradicting ideas. I would look at this as gold is probably going to try to get back to this area here. Now, I have drawn this trend, and I'm putting trend in inverted commas here. I've drawn it with the pen tool, the paintbrush tool, just to kind of get an idea as to what it's doing. However, I'm going to draw it with the actual trend line tool now to see, does it align? And it barely does. You can actually adjust it to see that it does, but it barely does. If it is, we had it aligned like that. So I'm gonna leave that there, but I'm just using this to kind of give you an idea as to the directional bias overall of gold. Let's come down to the 4-hour now, and we can see that it's actually dropping off of that trend line. Now, something I've learned in my years of being a trader, especially when it comes to news events, right? So we have a news event literally up and coming in, like I said, less than an hour, literally 45 minutes from now, right? And you see, anytime the market starts to do one thing before that news event, so if you start to see a market starting to drop before the news event, it's very likely that it's going to climb for the news event. And the reason for that is induction. What is induction? Induction is somewhat of, we can consider it bait, right? The dealer, which is the person actually controlling the market, is baiting traders to sell the market before the market actually produces the news event, or before the news event occurs and really affects the market. So if they are selling before the news event, he has already locked in, potential profits there. Think about how we as humans think. If we can secure something and, make sure that we have it, make sure that it's under control and we can manipulate it, we will, right? Now, we don't know if the dealer is an entity, a person, a group of people, a robot, an algorithm. We don't know. But it makes sense to capture people before the news event so that there's more liquidity that you can actually use for the news event, right? So I'm looking at this here. I'm looking at the fact that gold is actually dropping prior to the news, right? And, it's somewhat rejecting the downside, but I could possibly see more of a bear move prior to the news event, just before it drops. If it starts to go up really aggressive before the news, then you know that it's actually inducing the other side, meaning it's inducing buyers, and it most likely be imminently sellers, right? So I'm going to keep coming down so far. So far, I'm thinking that it could possibly, excuse me, it could possibly go up 40 news, right? Based on what I'm seeing thus far, especially as the fact that it's in a bull momentum move currently, right? So you're probably saying, well, what is stopping it from literally coming here and then doing that? Nothing. Nothing is stopping it. Not me, not you, not anybody. Nothing is stopping it from doing that. But what I am saying is, you see, anytime you're seeing a big sell happening prior to a news event, it's very likely that it's going to be a buy for the news. Now, another thing that I want for you to pay attention to is, I called this out yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, and I said that gold at this area would possibly buy back to this area, and it bought like, I think it was somewhere here, it bought like 300 pips from, what did I do? It bought like 300 pips from this area, right? Something like that. Yeah, about 300 pips from this area. And it broke this previous high. And it's actually now retesting this previous high. So it's actually a break and a retest. Now, it's very obvious that that's what it is. So I'm going to keep coming down to pay attention to what's happening. Notice it's playing below the zone. Why? Why is it so? So learn to ask the market why. What is the reasoning for showing me this? What is the reason for showing me a break and a potential retest, but it broke below the zone? Why? And now it looks like it's trying to reject the top side where this candle is coming up and rejecting the upside and going back down. Why? Maybe it's trying to show the masses, maybe it's trying to show traders that it's probably going to do this, right? So I'm not 100% sure as yet. Obviously, this is why you wait, right? Now, also another thing that I'm looking at is the fact that gold is producing something that wants to look like a bear move. So ignore how messy it is. This is just my thought process. I'm not trying to have a really precise analysis or anything like that. This is literally just trying to understand my thought process. It is an analysis, but it's my thought process. And we come down to the 50-minute now, and now you can actually see here, this is actually quite interesting, some bearish rejection, meaning that it could possibly be trying to go back up. Now, so what I'm thinking is anytime you start to see it comes back down here, so like it, so what I really want to show you is, let me get rid of this here. Excuse me. What I really want to show you is what I think could happen, right? Is it could stay in this area for a little while, and just before the news, come down into this area, reject, and then climb, right? The reason for this, or the reason for this exact move, is if it rejects too aggressive before the news, it could mean that it's probably going to go in the opposing direction of the rejection. So let's just say, let me put this over here. Let's just say it just comes down here and rejects immediately. Most likely, the fact that it is rejecting down here and going back up here so early, so far ahead of the news event, literally 40 minutes away. If it does that now, it's likely that this is the false move and it's actually going to do this. It's actually going to go down. So what I think, and because my bias is overall bullish, at least to this area here, this top side here, this trend line here, which if we think about it from this area is at least 150 pips minimum, right? I am thinking based on that, I think gold is most likely going to continue to buy, and I think that this move is actually very imminent, where you have a little consolidation here, a drop to make traders believe like it's going to drop, and then buy. So let me clean it up a little bit so you can kind of get a better understanding. Right, so I'm going to remove all of these crazy drawings here. Right, I'll leave that, and I'll leave that. I'll remove this. So yeah, that's what I am thinking in terms of a bias for gold. I think that, let me remove this as well. I think that gold has high possibility for buys where it can drop down, stop on this area, because there are going to be traders buying here. Stop on this area, so it could maybe even go just a little bit lower, maybe something like that. Right, stop on this area and then buy in a big way. And yeah, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens.